Hi, everyone. We're here to talk about creating and teaching a high school language class in a dormant language, the challenges and the opportunities. I'm Cathy O'Connor, and I'm here with Buffie Schmidt. Christy Wilson will be here during the actual session. Brady Dailey is here, and Batchelder-Schwab is here. So Northern Pomo is an indigenous language of Northern California, one of 7 Pomo languages. And starting with the arrival of white settlers around the time of the gold rush, they endured well over a century of horrific violence, enslavement, and forced relocation, as well as racist anti-Native oppression. The system of education included the elements that existed across what came to be called the US, including repressive government schools and punishment for speaking the language in schools. When I was a graduate student at UC Berkeley in linguistics in the late 70s and 80s, I started to do field work on the Northern Pomo language with an amazing woman named Edna Campbell Guerrero. She enlightened me about this horrific history and was an incredible linguist herself. Over 16 years, we compiled many hours of recordings about the language and stories and narratives as well. When she passed in 1995, I began working with Eleanor Stevenson Gonzalez, another amazing and brilliant person who was likely the last fluent speaker of the language. She died in 2005. Because of the history of white oppression, the language became dormant. There were no younger generations speaking the language. We had many, many sound files and field notes and published papers from that field work. And we had a desire to make these materials available to people in the community of descendants. There were community expressions of interest, but lots of practical obstacles. So with my students' help, I began to create online materials about the language so that people in the community could learn about the language and hear the voices of the last generation who spoke that language. So there's a website called northernpomolanguagetools.com. And it contains recordings of the last fluent speakers included in functions like a talking dictionary, a phrasicon, a section for stories and texts, lessons and games, and some other things. So for those who are interested, the programming is open source and you can have the code. So what happened next after we made this website? Well, nothing for a while, but then in 2021, the Pinoleville Pomo Nation and Title VI Committee, working with Ukiah Unified School District, requested permission from the state of California to offer a year-long class in Northern Pomo 1 at the Ukiah Public High School. In June, they got the notification that the class was approved and would begin in late August of 2021, but there was no curriculum. So a team came together. Our team included me, a white linguist, Buffie Schmidt, a Pomo cultural expert who became the class teacher, and Christy Wilson, a white elementary school teacher who had taught Spanish and who worked at Pinoleville at the time. She had written the proposal to date. So you'll see Buffie and Christy are the 2 people to the left. We began our planning immediately and continued together to create the class curriculum week by week during the second year of the pandemic in 2 classes comprised of over 35 Native Pomo students. Now, as the white linguist, I went into this thinking, as many white linguists do, that our goal is to create fluent speakers of the language. And I had a lot of anxiety about this because the language is very complex. It's very different from English. It's filled with complex grammatical and phonological phenomena. We gave some examples of this in an ICLDC presentation 2 days ago on March 2nd about the challenges of learning about kinship possession. Also, there are no community members or elders for students to talk to. So for the only people they can talk to are their classmates and the teacher. I'm not a language teacher. Buffie had not been a language teacher up to that point. And although Christy had taught Spanish, that is a very different situation, and we had to create the curriculum. Now, of course, this was during the pandemic, and as we started to teach sounds on the first day, the students all had to be wearing masks. And throughout these 2 years, student absences have been very high because of illness and many other challenging things. So not only is the language challenging, but the students also had many other stresses on them. And as we started the class and the months went by, I sometimes felt that the goal of creating fluent speakers was not realistic, and I felt discouraged. However, then I came upon a paper by Lenore Grenoble, who's a leading scholar of language documentation and revitalization, in a new book by Olko and Salabank. And she says, many people assume that language revitalization is all about creating new speakers. This view is overly simplistic. And I thought, oh, okay. So then she said, revitalization is not just about language, it's a social movement and brings benefits to society as well as to individuals. So stepping back for a second to situate this in the larger work of language revitalization, here's a quote from Grenoble about the ways that this can benefit communities above and beyond the creation of new fluent speakers. So the benefits are connecting with ancestors, the past, and cultural heritage, healing, building community, knowledge and culture, well-being, and cognitive benefits. So this pointed me to another way to think about the class. And the teacher of the class, Buffie Schmidt, had a much better understanding of this than I did. So she will speak now.
Thank you, Cathy. So many Native Indigenous people have not found the healing from our traumatic history. There's so much culture loss that we will never get back. Yet many families continue to go about their daily lives in our communities the best that they can. But we are hurt, sad, depressed, embarrassed, and angry from losing our identity. We are having families and children and continuing the intergenerational trauma in some cases. How does a large group of people heal from this trauma? Realizing and identifying that there is trauma and taking steps to rectify the trauma will help stop the continued genocide of our culture. This means becoming humble and admitting we don't know how to basket weave or pomo dance, and we don't know about our old medicines and how to gather our wild food. We don't know about our language. Healing our community from our past begins with revitalizing our culture. This class is a huge part of that healing in this community.
Thank you. So what we'll do in the rest of this talk is first talk a bit about how we structured the class and what we included, hoping to address these multiple benefits. And then we'll present data from an anonymous survey that the students took, asking them about what they felt they were getting out of the class. Okay, so we did a number of things. We're only going to talk about a few of them today. High school language classes, as you know, typically feature world languages such as French and Spanish. And so high school language departments may expect that classes must be offered in the immersion model, but of course we could not do that. So we had to build interactional use of the language from the ground up. So many units featured some construction that allowed for paired interaction, even if very brief. There was emphasis on conversations from the beginning. So students learned how to introduce themselves. I am Dante. Who are you? And then the other student would be able to say, I am Sheila. Who is he? Okay. I am from Coyote Valley. Where are you from? Who is that? That is my sister. Where is my phone? Our favorite question. Your phone is here. Is he your friend? No, he's my older brother. So here was one that was very popular. So Tsintamana is an expression, how are you, that many people know. And these students learned what were the parts of that expression. And then they learned many ways to answer it. So I'm good. I'm not bad. I'm not good. So they learned negation of one particular kind of negation. I'm bad. But then they learned their favorite. I'm tired. When we taught this, we said, we're going to teach you I'm tired. They got very excited. And they also got excited to learn, I don't know. So when someone says, how are you? You want to say, I don't know. We can all relate to that. So just as important as the language work were the culturally relevant activities. So These included, sometimes experts would come in, sometimes Buffie would teach the activity. This was preparing acorn mush, and you can see a student here who is pounding the acorns with a rock, as is traditional, and another person doing the same thing. And then we would prepare a handout that would have relevant words on it. So these are words that are not, you're not going to use the word acorn cap in a conversation very often, but it's a culturally important word. So these handouts would give support to those activities. The students made clapper sticks, which are an important traditional object. We made slides of pictures of these, and we recorded the traditional speakers saying these words. I hope you can hear this. And we gave an analysis of how those words broke down. So here's another one, singer, which means song throat. Then they learned the basics of basketry, which is amazing. And Buffie is an extremely expert basket weaver and was able to teach these students how to make baskets. And they love doing this. Here's a handout with some of the relevant words for this: tule, pack basket, etc. They also made whistles. So here you see people sitting in the beautiful outdoors in Ukiah at the high school making these whistles. So the class contents, in addition to this, they went beyond language, and they also went beyond these cultural activities to the creation of a classroom community that is itself a source of healing. And this was designed by the teacher, Buffie Schmidt, who had many insights about how to reach the students. So she will speak now about that.
Thanks again, Cathy. So building trust with Native students was a big concern because of historical trauma and other traumas in the families. Trust in my people is not easy. This takes time, patience, sensitivity, and compassion. Connecting helps build that trust. I know in the beginning of this class, I didn't think some of the students liked me. I didn't have a great connection with some of my students, and bringing back some of the cultural teachings to the students is a huge step in the healing process. This healing extends to their families, and although their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and guardians are not in the class, knowing that their youth have this opportunity to learn their culture brings them peace and healing too. The second year, they see that I'm still here. I'm still their teacher, and I'm not giving up on them or this class, because these are Native students. I know that some of them are not in their homes. They are being raised by grandparents, aunts, uncles, and even older siblings. Some of them may have slept on the cold floor, be wearing their older siblings' clothes. Some of them may not have had breakfast or dinner the night before. There may have been drinking, drug use, fighting in the household. All these things I have to be mindful of. I have to remember what it was like to be a teenager on the reservation. Based on this, I have incorporated check-ins and exit tickets as part of our daily and weekly lessons. Check-ins are at the beginning of the week, and I have a simple general question that I ask the students, and sometimes I'll ask each student an individual question. And examples could be, who did you make smile recently? Or what is your favorite candy? And my favorite subject at school is, or one word to describe your weekend. And I've done thumbs up and thumbs down for how they were feeling that day. This way I can check up on them without having to seem nosy or in their business. And the students can connect with each other this way too. And the exit tickets is a summary of the day's lesson, what they learned that day, what they still don't get, what they would like to learn more about, and how they can connect the day's lessons with their life. Connections and building trust take time. Showing them that I'm here for them happens one day at a time. For me, that means being on their side, looking them in the eye every day, giving them extra time on their assignments when they are out sick, going over their lessons several times when they don't get it, celebrating their victories when they do get it. And every day I see the healing take place. I know that one day in the future, they'll look back at this classroom and remember it as the good old days. They may look back at their language logs, their notes, and read the exit ticket, and it may remind them of something special or be helpful in the future for their continued language learning.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're into the second year, and Buffie is teaching both Northern Pomo 1 and Northern Pomo 2. So we wanted to ask, how are these materials, all of it, the language work, the cultural work, and these activities that she just talked about, how were they taken up by the students? How did the students feel about it? So we decided to ask them what their experiences were like. And we did this with some very simple questions that we approached in a simple way in an anonymous survey that we handed out in class. Oh, I was supposed to show this picture. I'm sorry. So how was the class experienced by students? We created an anonymous survey and it had these questions on it. Do you ever use the Northern Pomo words and sentences you learn in class when you're outside of class in your daily life? If so, can you give an example of who you use them with and how? Do you picture using the language in your future? If so, how do you picture using it? One purpose of this class is to connect you to your ancestors, family, and community. Do you feel this class has accomplished this? Please give an example if you want to. And one goal of this class is to create a connectedness with your identity. Do you feel that this class has accomplished that goal? If so, how? So we'll put together questions 1 and 2. Do the students use it outside class? Do they see themselves using it in the future? Because those seem connected to us. Out of the 25 students in years 1 and 2 who filled out the survey by the time of the 23 are Pomo, and all 23 of those students answered this question. 19 did indicate use outside of the class, 83% of them. So here's some examples of their positive responses. Yes, I use Northern Pomo words. I would see some of my friends that understand and ask them how they are. It's in Thamana. Sometimes me and my cousin conversate as best we can with things like, how are you? Or where are you from? I use them outside of class when I teach my family at home. Sometimes I call my dogs Ke Hayu and my cats Ke Haralom, and those are spelled perfectly, by the way. I tell my girlfriend new words that I learn. Yes, I use it to confuse my friends. Okay, so there were just a few negative responses, but they were also very positive in a way. No, I don't, but I will try more. And no, I don't normally, but sometimes I will tell my mom new words I learned and remembered. So there's no negativity here. Now, the next question, do you picture yourself using the language in your future? 96% of these students who answered see themselves using Northern Pomo in their future. Some students envision general or conversational use. I hopefully do. I see myself teaching family or using it as a way to communicate with friends. Yes, I want to talk to my kids in Northern Pomo. Yes, to talk to my grandma. So they're envisioning a family use of this. Some of them envision themselves teaching. Yes, I'd like to teach my cousins and nieces and nephews. I just picture myself teaching the future generation to the best of my ability. I picture teaching my family the language, both my family now and my family far from now. So in questions 3 and 4, does this class make them feel connected with their ancestors and community, and does it connect with their identity? The first question about the ancestors, family, and community connections, 87% of the students gave it a positive response. So here's some examples. I believe I am connecting to my elders and ancestors because when I go back to the reservation, I tell my grandma or uncles what I have learned so far. I think this class has accomplished this. I'm much more involved and interested in my culture. I've also gotten to meet and be with other Native youth in my community. An example of this is I feel closer to my ancestry because I've learned about Native foods, norms, and spirituality. Yes, because showing us a language that we can revive and keep, you are showing us a language we can revive and keep going, so we will use it in the future. In some ways, yes, when I think of my older relatives and realize how much my family doesn't know a thing, I feel like it has, because knowing more of the language helps with bringing back what once was. Now, here are some negative responses about connecting to the ancestors. kind of, but there were very, very few. Kind of, but not really. I feel like learning my language has helped, but not enough yet. So this person is looking for more. Okay, so the final question about, did this create a connectedness with your identity? Only 57% of the students gave a positive response, and you'll appreciate some of these responses with people in high school. The positive responses: I believe I have been connecting with my native identity because I'm learning my language. And not only that, I feel like my ancestors would be proud since I'm trying to revitalize my language. Yes, I honestly feel like a real native because I know how to speak like one. Now, here are the negative responses. Did this connect you with your identity? No, I knew who I was before this. No, I was already accomplished of this. I don't feel connected to my identity. And this is a very interesting one. I'm not sure, really, especially considering most of the people I know who spoke our language aren't here anymore. So this is a very complex question, and it would be worth more discussion, I think. So, so now we're in the second year. And in this final moment, I would really like to hand it over to the teacher, Kapel Bainaman. So Buffy, you can finish this.
Okay, thank you. Teaching this class to the high school students gives us all an opportunity for healing for ourselves and our families and our communities. The students are empowered. They are learning something that was never thought possible. We are learning more and more about our culture, and also learning we have allies. To see the healing take place is the biggest joy and privilege of teaching these students. I don't think they get the magnitude of what they've accomplished yet, but I know that many Pomo people have not been given this opportunity. It's amazing to see the fruition, the healing that has taken place in such a short time that I've been teaching this class. It's been amazing.
So we've had many challenges, many opportunities. Will we keep going? Yes, we will. Thank you.